Listen, there is a list, and I found it for you. Data right here on screen is a DSAC portal. It's a government website. What they've done, they put a bunch of people on a list, and this list talks about people that basically, so possibly including firearms regulation. If you don't like that, or you don't like the ease of immigration restrictions, you don't like the limit of the public land, if you are discontent with renewed measures to the mitigation of COVID-19 or any type of virus, you're a domestic violent extremist. And they're going to give this list label to the new force that's in control, which we're going to break down all throughout this video. Also, what are the target list zones? We got that. And this is going to give you a navigation through what's coming in our recent goings up to 2025. You need to stick around because we got HHS whistleblowers in here. We got military whistleblowers in here, pilot whistleblowers. You need to really listen to this. This is a life or death scenario. But when you look into what they're actually saying in the most recent, this list will be given to a new force that would be taking over the United States.
The Courage to Serve Act. This bill would offer qualified and vetted migrants an expedited path to citizenship if they serve in the military.
This former, basically, colonel that came out and said that this is how they're going to use illegals to turn the guns on us.
The largest problem is that Washington is this ideological bubble, and everyone decides that anyone who doesn't agree with them, that the world has to be refashioned in some new image that exists only in their minds, and that anybody who disagrees with them is by definition a criminal and has to be treated as such. What better solution than finding people who have no connection to the American people, arming them, and then sending them out to oppress us?
That's in a book.
Sounds like a great solution.
And this makes so much sense because I pulled out a map. I told you the depopulation map that just came out this year, which goes up to 2025, even though they lie and say 2100. Notice something, like I said, once again, these green zones are all the areas where migration is going. And in the red areas is where the depopulation zones are. So if you're bringing in a military force that is immigrated here and they get a fast track, and you see the zones that we're looking at right here, these are the areas where the highest targeting happens.
Detroit.
And they've got very serious, like we said just the other day, and people don't even take it serious. Like they had a whole roundtable meeting with law enforcement about a civil emergency in America. I recently just told you that. That was March 1st they came out with this report. And they said it wouldn't just be National Guard, it'd be private entities there too.
The 357th Military Police Company of Concord, California, trained for detention operations at Fort Hunter Liggett. Made up of correction and detention specialists within the Military Police Corps, the unit prepares to assume the responsibility of securing and protecting displaced civilians in a theater of operations. This includes transferring refugees from hostile environments to Army detention centers to protect them from attack while also controlling civil unrest.
So look at this map right here. This is a taste of what the military's camps are like, detention centers inside of their drill. Now, I put a map beside a map, and I want us to look closely here. This is exactly what we're seeing. You see this? These areas you need to be cautious of when the civil war unrest moment goes down. They said they would also be removing immigrants so that they could potentially help them from civil war unrest, because it might be a scenario where people are going after them because they are coming after us.
This includes transferring refugees from hostile environments to Army detention centers to protect them from attack while also controlling civil unrest.
Take this into perspective here. Let's, after looking at that map, then look at the timing that the United Nations are going to leave New York, because I didn't go deep into that. I just told you they were leaving. But they happen to pack up and leave right on time. They leave. Look, a fully integrated program technical division will be in place August 2024, ahead of the physical move plan between March, September 2025. So here's what I see happening. Excuse me. All of the high assets will be moved from the UN office right away. And maybe they leave the other ones there for the longest period, and they could be stuck in the middle of some event, because that's usually how they do it. They cast them to the wolves. Now, it was also another 2025 scenario called by this Air Force general who said, basically, we'll be at war with China by 2025. Technically, that could be a case, but the internal war that we would face would be from the invaders that's already in, who's probably going to be serving in the military, who's given orders to come after the average person because of some list, just like I showed you. Now, like we said, the navigation to all this stuff on a map is that the Rocky Mountains area is the area that has the least population. So the forewarning scenario is that they got a plan to have everybody flood us, right? Now, during those unrest moments, there's
we getting flooded, all right.
process of how emergency protocols are set up. We got that here right now for you. Super important you see this. Let's talk about it. Since civil unrest was the big topic for the military, if you look under the U.S. Fire Administration, there's something that happens during this civil unrest moment. Activate the emergency operations, support incident area, assign EMS representatives to EOC, assist with coordination, establish method for screening calls and service.
Take too much more. They're gonna have to go.
Now, what they have is something called hot, cold, and warm zones that EMS will not be responding to.
Chicago's already put that.
The reason why they can't respond to a hot zone, because it's basically a zone that's super basically devastated, probably gunshots going through it. Warm zone, an area of lower threat, but which may become unsafe, law enforcement support is recommended for entry into the warm zone. This is what America is basically going to become after all this stuff breaks down. I'm just trying to give you the insight on what you would need to know. Cold zone, an area of little to no threat of civil unrest or violence, law enforcement support. It's optional for entry into the cold zone. Now, as people, we would need to know what a hot zone is, a warm zone, and a cold zone. I have the official diagram and where the actual smart wall will be at after everybody gets in, how they plan to do this. Well, they talk about the smart wall. They've been talking about it for a couple of years, and we'll pull up the diagram. So it was in some predictive programming that when some outer states was hit with devastation, what would happen is they would put walls around only the areas that they deem to be still, good living, not devastated environments. California was one of them in one of the predictive programs. I remember that was on Colony. Smart wall up.
Colony,
huge wall, drones comes out of it. The real project is right. And they say they want fiber optic sensors. They want, underground cables, detection systems. And that's not because they don't want people to get in, it's because they don't want you to get out. Because everybody's already in at this point. You can see travels from all across the U.S.-Mexico border.
The new Gordie Howe Bridge, y'all.
And so that's really right here on the map where this is all the areas where the border enforcement zones are. So, it only makes sense why all of the areas of why we would be flooding in certain zones would be the hot zones on the edges of the United States. But meanwhile,
we a hot zone.
The United States is supposed to suffer much more devastating depopulation plan.